Instead of building individual modular bases, we just went big. And we built the whole thing in one fell swoop.
So in this video, we'll show you how to design, build, and everything you need to know about building this bench.
Out of one sheet of plywood and some trim. The first step in this project and in any project is just to get your boards cut. Now we started with one sheet of 3/4 inch thick plywood. We cut it into 3 strips that are about 15 3/4 inch wide.
You can achieve this by using a good table saw, or you could also use a circular saw to cut this if you choose to.
Handling a full sheet of plywood is difficult for you. Just have your home improvement store cut the plywood for you. One thing though, have them set the track saw that they use to cut it so that the plywood is run through horizontally and the track saw is only set once. Because where it doesn't really matter so much what your width is, it matters greatly that your widths are all the same. The next step is to cross cut. By cross cut, we mean simply that you're cutting across the grain. Now plywood, it has grains in different directions, but it essentially means cutting perpendicular to the rib cut. There's a number of different ways to cross cut.
A good way to do the cross cut is use a circular saw and use a track system to line up on your cut. It works really good. These are 15 3/4 inch wide, so they're really hard to cut on a miter saw and get square, so that is the best route to do it.
It can be done. You can cut this on a miter saw, and what you'll do is cut halfway through and then flip it and you'll cut the other half. The problem is that it's very, very difficult to get your cut lined up perfectly every time. So I prefer to use a circular saw and cross cut as he said. So let's do that. So to cross cut, I just clamped a square, and as I cut, the saw will follow along on the side, and it'll help me cut square.
Okay, so now that we got our project all cut out, ready to go, we went ahead and marked all where the pocket holes were going to go. Then we put them in the craig jig and drill our pocket holes. Ready for assembly.
We got all of the legs in, just by pocket holing those. And the next step is I added this 1x2 board to the front. It really just kind of trims out the front, and it also strengthens this front area. A 3/4 inch thick piece of plywood should be able to span this distance, but in the event that somebody sits on it, it just adds a little bit more support. So the next step, we're going to add those shelves.
We added some blocks in here, just made it really quick and easy to just scraps for attaching our shelves. So let's go ahead and put a little glue on. So as you can see, those are just spacers. And then we're going to go ahead and attach the shelves. Okay, so now the shelves are on. Now we have to attach the back.
I apply glue to all of the edges of the back side of the shelf. Glue is really important when you're using nails or staples. The staples or the nails will give out, but the glue will hold over time. I'm using 1/4 inch for the back. You don't need much here, but having 1/4 inch plywood on the back really does help stiffen it up. And then I'm using an 18 gauge narrow crown stapler with 3/4 inch staples. To mark where the dividers are in the shelf, I just use a square, and I'm marking about 3/8 inch off the square, just using those marks as a guide to place my staples.
We got the back on, it's time to flip it over. Always my favorite part. done, it's gonna look fantastic because we're gonna add some trim to the front. All right, so I'm just gonna add a little glue here. Then for trim, this is just baseboard molding. Buy it right off the shelf.
To attach the trim, I use glue and 1 1/4 inch brad nails. At the top, we just use a piece of cove. This finishes out the top. It just gets nailed on with 1 1/4 inch nails.
Nail the trim on, which leaves a tiny little hole on the base, and I just go and use wood filler. The hardest part of the project for me is waiting for the wood filler to dry so that I can finish it. This stuff is pretty cool because it's color changed. So it goes on purple, and when it's dry, it is white. And I just keep doing this.
After the wood filler dried in a light sanding, we just painted the whole thing white. It looks great with paint on it.
Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. We really appreciate that.
So just one simple sheet of plywood, trim, at your hardware store you can pick it up and you can build this.
Yep, we got you covered with the full detailed plans, so make sure you check that out and stay tuned because we're also going to be adding plans for the hutch, the cubby storage above.